and you can type in the Gary International Black Film Festival. And that call to work starts April 12th. Seattle is ready. Gordon is ready. I'm ready too. So what we would like to do, and just whenever I can get an okay from our tech support, you all know, I don't know if you all know this, when I say that we are an international Black film festival, we are literally everywhere. Our tech support is in Bermuda, y'all. So he's living the life of sunny sands and warm weather. But I want you to tell me, Ventress, if you're ready for us to see our first clip, which is our interview with Ashley O'Shea.
We are ready.
Excellent. We are ready, everyone. So let's take a listen to Ashley O'Shea, the director of Unapologetic, the film that you're going to see, and she was in conversation with our director, with our film festival director, Karen Toring.
Welcome. The Gary International Black Film Festival is proud and honored to have filmmaker Ashley O'Shea, the director and producer of Unapologetic, join us today. Thank you for joining us today, Ashley.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, this film it's a lot of things to me, but it's an incredible interior look at organizing uh, as a tool for
hmm
Black liberation. Talk to us about why you made this film and why it was important to make this film now and in this way.
Yeah, I wanted to make this film initially because there was so much happening in the Chicago organizing community in the fall of 2015, and in particular around this police killing of young Black woman named Rakia Boyd. And I was taken aback that the folks that were at the head of this charge were a lot of young Black people. And through research and going to some of the events with the community, I realized that it wasn't just young Black people, but like within the leadership itself, it was very centered on young Black women and femmes and people that I could directly identify with. Well, I still can, but I was young at the time too. Um, and I just started to do some research to investigate if there were any like comprehensive media pieces about Black liberation and Black social movements that were told from this very specific perspective. And of course, I came up short. And I think just because of like what was happening politically and historically in Chicago at the time, I just felt something in my spirit that this was going to be like a moment to be remembered. And I really didn't want it to be kind of cast aside or forgotten about many, many years down the line. So it really was to like try to get this living archive going of what I was seeing happening in Chicago. And, also for me to be able to understand the shift that a lot of these young Black women were making within the organizing community itself, and how they were like leading with that politic and how it was or wasn't working, and how we can like start to integrate that into like the larger movement for Black lives.
So talk about your journey as a filmmaker, because I do think that people would like to hear a little bit about that part.
Yeah, it began at Northwestern. I went there for undergrad and was in the radio TV film program, and was really concentrated there more on cinematography and like developing that skill set. But I also have been exposed and starting to learn about just like documentaries in a critical way. And so The film was actually initially incubated at Cartemquin Films here in Chicago, and through both an internship and their Diverse Voices and Docs fellowship. And that was like really just like a crash course in producing and directing a feature length documentary film. I had done many shorts, but I started to just like understand like the scale of it. And so a lot of the time after that was like just me taking a bunch of crash courses in this process. I did a fellowship with Firelight Media, with the Bay Area Video Coalition. I had a lot of really wonderful institutional support throughout the process. And so honestly, I think that was informing a lot of my storytelling. I was able to take the film to different rough cut labs, where, that in particular was like, we have been trying to tell the story from a more like top down, just like overarching view of like all of the work that different organizations were doing. And it wasn't like gelling with people in the feedback. And they were like, we really want to lean into these two activists. And so that's when we, made the shift to really just like follow Janae and Bella like as the core of the story. And I just also had really great collaborators on this project. My editor, Ruben Daniels, he also came through Cartemquin, and actually jumped on pretty early, like before an editor would normally jump on. But it was helpful because it helped to identify like the gaps in the story, and I was able to like go out and shoot, what we needed. So yeah, Ruben Daniels, Morgan Elise Johnson, my producer, just a lot of really great Black community around this film, which I think made it a little bit easier for me to just focus on the story and not have to put up those walls and like feel like I have to explain a lot of what doesn't need to be said.
So tell me what you want people to take away from this film after they've seen it.
Well, I often tell people that, when I came to this film, I didn't have a lot of experience with community organizing or a lot of knowledge around it, but I sat with myself and felt that my skills as a filmmaker and as a storyteller was one way that I could contribute to this really important moment in time. And so I just encourage people to have that same sort of interrogation with themselves. Everyone doesn't have to come to this space as like a Malcolm X or a MLK. There's a lot of different ways that people are entering into this movement right now as artists, as scholars, as creatives, as writers. And I have found that is often when you come to it, as you are and not trying to fit into a specific model, that's usually what sustains people the best. I think there's a really big issue with sustainability, rightfully so, because there's not enough people in the work and it can be very tiring. And so I think, feeling that you're connected by something that's important to you or that you have a lot of experience around is really helpful for you to like keep going and sustaining. Um, and to also just, recognize that people have been doing this work for many years. That it's okay to defer to somebody else when you're coming in. Nobody knows everything, and that there's just so many ways to contribute if you just open yourself up to researching and to seeing what's happening in your own community. So I just always encourage people to meet the movement where they're at, and everything else will hopefully fall into place.
Is there anything else that you want to share?
I'm like, is there anything? Not in particular. I'm just really grateful that people take the time to watch this 86-minute film. And, if there's an organizer or a young person in your life that you feel like could really benefit from this, like, please share it, because, that's where a lot of the new energy is. And I think there's so many new ideas coming into the space that are coming from young folks. So definitely share it with them. And if you want to buy some merch, you can go to our website, unapologeticfilm.com, and get your swag. And that's, that's another great way to share news about the film. So I'll plug that.
Yeah. Is there and there is there anything else? What you working on right now? Because that's always what people want to know.
They always want to
It's
know.
like
I always
I
want to
just
know.
finished this film. I'm still trying to recover from that.
Right, right.
Right.
I have actually started developing two new projects. One is actually based in Indianapolis in the 90s, around a particular event. I can't say much about it, but it's around a particular event. It's set in Black Indianapolis in the 90s, and I'm from there. So yeah, I'm starting to do research and development on that. And then I'm also working on a docu-series about my family patriarch from Mobile and Tuskegee, Alabama, who had 17 children and always gets them. And kind of like his influence on their lives and how that kind of influenced, like they were part of like kind of the second wave of the Great Migration. Is how, part my mom and I ended up in Indianapolis. And so yeah, I'm doing that, and then I'm still freelancing as a cinematographer to just try to keep my skills sharp. So I guess I'm not sleeping anytime soon, but I'm glad to be in my flow, as they say.
Yes, yes, indeed. Ashley O'Shea, thank you so much for your incredible film, for the stories that it tells, for the way that it tells stories. And we can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
So, what's wonderful about this is that, Ashley, even though she's not from Gary, she is an Indiana girl, and we have to represent for her as well. So I wanted to just remind everyone, if you have questions, Ashley won't be in the end, but we do have Bella Boz, one of the activists. So if you have questions for Bella or questions for activism, please share in the Q&A. Not in the chat, but in the Q&A. There's like a little Q&A letter at the top, the bottom right side, I think, of your screen. So type it there so then I can be able to find it and I can ask those questions for you all. All right. So I think without further ado, I think we're ready to get started, and just waiting for our dear Venture